In this section, we introduce interface design patterns, and we also think about the platform guidelines that are defined for common platforms. So by way of introducing both of these elements, when we think about design patterns, first of all, these are well-established, well-tested, well-tried designs or outlines of designs that we can use to solve common problems. So it's where people have commonly encountered time and time again a certain type of problem and realize that, oh, this is a good solution for that type of problem. And we've abstracted them and we present them as a pattern, a reusable solution that we can draw upon. And they're broadly used inside software development, and equally, there are a large number of patterns that are available that relate to the interfaces and the interactions that we have with our users. And alongside this, we're also going to touch upon very briefly, really link through to a number of different guidelines that are set up depending upon your platform. So this could be Android, could be iOS, could be Windows, where there are certain looks and feels and expectations for software running on those platforms that it's really quite important that we follow or we adhere to depending on the platforms or applications are running on. But we'll start off first of all thinking about our interaction design patterns. And as mentioned, they're available and there's a number of different types when we're thinking about how we can interact with our users. You can see the three different types we've outlined here, from postural patterns to structural patterns to behavioral patterns. Postural patterns, as the name suggests, is all about the how we can approach different types of stances that the user can use. So if they're using it in a transient way, some of the patterns around how we can commonly set up, establish, and deal with those types of transient relationship. Likewise, there'll be a number of ones for sovereign style of interactions. For structural patterns, they're more concerned with if there's certain types of information or a certain structure we want for our information. There's a number of good, well-established patterns that can help us set it out, lay it out on the screen, common ways of doing navigation and other types of structuring. And behavioral patterns then think about common activities that the user may do in terms of, could be copying and pasting or entering certain types of information. So where there are certain behaviors or activities that users are doing, quite often there's established patterns for those types of activities that we can build upon and use. So I've got a couple of examples here of two quite common patterns we can use. The first one is on mobile devices, the idea of a drawer, where you can swipe from the left or swipe from the right in many apps, and it will open up then an additional window, a drawer on top of the main background. And typically, by convention then, if you're displaying the left-hand drawer, that often holds navigation or other menu options or control options for the particular app. And if you open up the right-hand drawer, quite often that holds additional information for whatever then is displayed on the main screen. So it's commonly used, and because it's commonly used, it means then that users almost have an expectation that this may be available. And if we use that, it offers a good solution, a way of displaying extra types of information. And because users would expect to see this in many applications, it's going to be something they may try out, something they'll be familiar with, something they'll be comfortable with. Another type of pattern, this one more for the desktop and more for sovereign positions, is the organizer workspace pattern. So in this sense, generally we set aside the left-hand side of the screen to have an organizational pane. It could be options, it could be navigation ones, and on the right-hand side we have our workspace available for it. And that workspace, again, we could subdivide that into an overview pane and then a detailed pane at the bottom. It's quite a common pattern if you think then to how different applications works, and because it's common, it's because applications use it, meaning that if we use it too, it's likely to be familiar to our users. There's lots and lots of different types of pattern, so there's more than we can sort of look at inside this course. If you want to explore these in more detail, and I wholeheartedly recommend that you do, here's a couple of good books for you to delve into and explore in more detail. We have Designing Interfaces, Patterns for Effective Interaction Design, really good read. Likewise, Practical UI Patterns for Design Systems, also another good read. So please do have an explore. There's also a link there to a design pattern site that offers, again, a number of different examples. So you may want to start off with that, and then if you want to delve into some of the recommended reading. And just to bring this short section then to a close, obviously if you're developing for an Android device, any of the Apple devices or Windows platform, there's a rich set of information that's available around design guidelines, interaction design guidelines that is set out there. In some cases, it captures good practice. In other cases, it captures requirements. You must do this if you want to have your product available in the respective app stores. So a number of, again, hopefully interesting links you'll want to explore. Do have a look through these. It's slightly outside the scope of this course because we're not considering about developing specific software for a specific platform. But in reality, your software would be targeting a certain platform, and you'll want then to understand what are the common approaches, the common expectations of users on that platform. So do have a look at that. So this brings us to the end, actually, of our section, or broad section, on sort of looking at some design principles and the types of technique and hints and tips and other things we can use to help us design our interfaces. In the next video, we're going to summarize this section just in terms of bringing together the different topics that we've explored.